Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to do this special podcast with Tim Quirk. He is the co-founder and chief strategy officer at Final Offer. We're doing this from the Final Offer podcast studio. It's this cool place that we set up at the gathering. We are here with 900 of our favorite people and in Colorado Springs at the Broadmoor. Amazing. We just kicked it off and I'm really excited. Tim, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sarah. Happy to be here, and incredible what 12 months does when we were sitting here, 12 months ago in terms of what we're talking about to what's going on now.
Absolutely. So let's give a little recap. Okay. So 12 months ago we were, there was a whole different conversation going on, and yet it kind of came down to the same thing, which is like, how do you serve the consumer? So let's talk about what's changed from your perspective in real estate in the last 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, when we were sitting here 12 months ago, everyone was talking about how are they going to respond to the lawsuits and implement change, and how are we going to train all the agents, and what do they do from systems and technology and just like the overall process, right? To you fast forward 4 months from then, and all of a sudden, private listings and withholding listings on the public market all started to become into the discussion, and how do you market that? And it's a black and white discussion. And then all of a sudden, we were just talking about, you start to take a look at some of the acquisitions that are happening and the consolidation happening in the industry when it comes to real estate and mortgage coming together, right? And I think when you look at all of it, it all boils down to still trying to meet the consumer where they're at and what they're looking for, which really is just a great streamlined experience with real-time information that they can trust throughout the process.
I think that's a great distillation because we have seen, there are other reasons for that consolidation, right? But we saw Rocket acquiring Redfin and then Mr. Cooper, you have Lower and Movoto. There's a lot happening, but at the bottom of it is like, how is it in this new technology era, what do consumers want? And what they still want is a lot of guidance. They want transparency. They want to know what they can expect, and especially on the price, which is where Final Offer comes in.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we're seeing, I think it's just an acceleration of what the consumer is looking for. And, with our business where we meet the consumer is, we've been about bringing technology to the real estate community, the real estate agents and brokerages, being able to give consumers what they're looking for, which is more information in the heart of the transaction when they want to make an offer. Are there multiple offers? Are we negotiating? It's a challenge. Most consumers don't know what to do. And frankly, most agents don't have the information that they need to guide them. So right. We hear a lot from the consumer base saying, I don't want to cross my fingers and go to sleep hoping that I'm going to be able to buy this home. And from the seller's perspective, them not knowing, is there a real strategy in place for me to get what I'm looking for? And not always is it about price. It's about price and terms and timing and what they're looking to do. And I think the rhetoric in the industry about the black and white of, you look at everything going on with the off market or pre-market, or however you want to describe it, we see just from personal experiences with Final Offer, you have family members, others that just know what we do, and they're in the process of selling their home right now. And you've got someone that might have moved across the country asking their agent, can you just share my listing? Can you share my property with whoever possible? Because if we just get this, we're fine. We just want to be done.
Interesting.
And even the agent sometimes like, well, we really don't want to do it that way. And it's, well, why? That's what the consumer actually wants. And they're not about getting the top price. They're just getting, this is what we need right now. And it'll allow us to have comfort and reduce our anxiety so we can just move on with our life, right? And I think that's what it really boils down to, is give the consumer a strategy so that they can move on with their life and get what they're looking for.
So, for people who don't know what Final Offer does, I think one of the first questions people might have or assumptions is like, oh, it's like an auction. So maybe tell us how Final Offer is different than an auction.
Yeah. And 2 years ago, we came to the gathering and, we were on stage, and I asked the audience, who's been through the process of selling their home? And obviously everyone raises their hands, and I'm like, how many of you feel like you left money on the table? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden a big stir popped up, right? And just to ask that basic question. And it's the same on the buy side. You make an offer and you're told that another offer is there. And, well, is there really? For someone that might buy 3 or 4 properties in their life, they don't necessarily believe it, even if they're being told by someone that they trust. they still don't know. Is there really something there, or am I bidding against myself?
Right.
And so what we did with Final Offer is we built an offer in negotiation platform that allows everyone in the transaction, both the agents and the consumers, to have more insight and information about what's happening in real time. So we allow for full transparency of what's happening, or lesser. It's a dial that folks, the listing agent and seller, can dial up or down depending on what information they want to disclose to the public about their property, how many offers they have. But in all situations, everyone that's following the property gets a real-time alert. We changed the open house experience. You walk into an open house and they put the information on the television, and you can see what the seller wants, and you can scan a QR code and you get text messages when activity happens, including when offers happen, right? So that just changes how everyone thinks about how they're going about the transaction. And that level of transparency at the very lowest is just, hey, an offer came in. Or,
so you know, as the buyer, for instance, like someone else, there is one other offer. Right?
That's right. And you don't have to disclose the price or the terms of that offer. People can trust that the process is there, that we know that there's a real offer from a financially qualified buyer that's working with an agent, right? That's pretty profound. That doesn't exist today. And so for agents that use Final Offer, as they get more and more offers in, they've said, we're not even disclosing what they are, but just by virtue of having them is creating more opportunity for everyone that's interested. And we could go after case study after case study of the thousands that have been sold through this platform. The agents say, we've got more people to come to the table because they could trust the process.
Well, you're a neutral third party. This is not, you're like, even if you really like your agent, you're like, is the other agent lying to them? Like, how do we actually know?
Right. And we've done a study, and we continue to do this study where we poll agents and ask them, do you trust other agents during the transaction? Right. And 91% say no. And it's not pointing the finger. It's the process. It's not the agents. It's the way that the process is run. Sarah and I were talking earlier, and when you look at pricing strategy, East Coast primarily prices property at or even slightly above where they think the property is going to sell. And yet you can go to the West Coast and go to Oakland, and a $900,000 single family home will go on the market, and buyers are exhausted when it goes to 1.6 to 1.8.
Wow.
They just have a different way of going about it, right? And we're in Toronto, right? And so in Toronto, we've seen even the condo market has been very stale there. Yet, if you get the price point down to something that's of value, you can ultimately take a property that has been on the market for quite some time and get multiple offers on it all of a sudden because you just were able to indicate that this is the most value in the entire building, and people are attracted to that. So it's about how you use this and how you strategize with it. And the agents that are using this are growing their business in a great way because it's giving them that opportunity to disclose that information. So
tell us a little bit about the dial, and like at the very bottom, it's like, hey, we have offers, and this is how many offers. What's sort of on the other end of that dial? Like tell me what that process is like.
And so let me actually go a step back, right? So what Final Offer does is we consume all of the listings from the MLSs and the markets that we're in. And then our platform is sold to brokerages. So brokerages pay for Final Offer for their agents to be able to use. And within that, they are also able to share any of their pre-market listings across the brokerage themselves. So when you look at the different strategies that different brokerages have around pre-marketing today, I think we all know how that goes. But when an offer comes in, and sometimes an offer comes in before it hits the MLS, no one knows. And so the seller might take it. And that's where there's risk. Whereas with Final Offer, what agents are doing is they might get an offer when they pre-marketed it because the seller wasn't ready to get their house in show-ready fashion. They're able to disclose that to everyone within the brokerage. It creates more urgency. We have agents that actually bring the property onto the market with a list price that's actually of an offer they already have in hand that they're going to accept, and they're able to disclose that to everyone. Wow. So the transparency with a dial allows agents to say, we're either going to just disclose if offers have come in, a secondary dial to go to the seller. Like if I came to you and said, Sarah, if I gave you a blank check today, would you walk out of your house? What would you write down? Right? And I'm not trying to buy the listing from you. You smiled. Yeah. Like this is a dream. This is something that like, wow, okay, I could sell my house for that. We have a place that we can do that. And it's called the Final Offer button. It's your make me move opportunity, right? And so it's a price and set of terms that the seller will actually sign a contract up front stating that the first person that's financially qualified that gives me this offer, I'll take it. It's an amazing buying opportunity. It's an amazing opportunity for the homeowner. So that's the secondary dial. Third, imagine you got 2 offers on a property. No one knows what they are, like publicly, right? And the listing agent goes, seller, and says, what would you like to do? We can either take one, we can negotiate with one, but we can negotiate with one, and we know that there's another one that's interested. Why don't we say, look, we'll take your offer tomorrow at 5 o'clock, but you're going to give us the permission to disclose your offer to not just the buyer that's on the table, but everyone. But if you came to a higher price, or maybe it's a different set of terms, we'll let you have that offer accepted immediately, and we're only giving you that option. So it's giving fair negotiation in that situation. And a lot of times the buyers will either pay them the additional money or agree to those terms and just have their offer accepted. In other cases, buyers will have their offer disclosed to the public, and others have the opportunity.
You know, as someone who bought a house recently and bought a car recently and all that, transparency and like certainty in the process is just such a better way to operate, right? Because then you know, like if you set that price and you're like, I know I'm not selling unless I get this. Or as the buyer, you're like, I know that I got a good deal for me. Like I know what was on the table and I know what I did and I feel really good about it.
That's right. And so we've seen two really important things that have come out of this from a process perspective. The first is if the offer goes live for a period of time, that both parties agree and that goes live. We have seen that in cases where maybe there's 5 or 6 offers. There was recently one in Southern Connecticut where 6 offers had come in.
Wow.
Okay. And the listing agent went back to all of the other agents. They went back to one and said, we'll do this. We call it the AB option. We'll give you option A. We'll take your offer tomorrow at such and such time if no one else comes in with something better, or you can come up and you can take it right now. And what happened was the buyer ultimately decided, we'll take option A. You can disclose it to the public. They were at the top of what they could afford, and the seller wasn't willing to just take that. So they did. 2 more buyers that weren't initially in that pool of 6 came to the table with better offers. And so what did that do for everyone involved? Number one, those buyers had an opportunity. The listing agent had no idea that they existed. 2, we asked the agent, well, how would you have negotiated this without the final offer platform? Like, we would have gone back with best and final to the top 2. Well, ultimately, it was the second buyer that had a lower offer initially that paid 30% higher for that property than what it was listed, yet they felt great about it because they had the option to do it. And everyone had a fair chance, and none of the buyers were blaming their agents that they didn't get it because they just didn't have an opportunity. They all had the opportunity.
That's so interesting. So, in some markets, like you mentioned, Connecticut, we know that there are some Northeast markets that are very competitive, where there are multiple offers. What do you say about markets where people are like, well, I may not need that because, we're just trying to get one offer.
Yeah. And there's a lot of places that are like that right now, and it's shifted very quickly. And at the end of the day, it comes down to price. So when you can get a price point that's attractive, then you'll get interest. And so what happens a lot of times is if you have properties that have been on the market for 60 days, 90 days, everyone thinks that property should sell in the first weekend, just with what's happened over the last few years. That doesn't, that's not the norm. They have the opportunity to be able to get to price point to attract attention and then ultimately get more people back into the process. So if they only got one offer, the listing agent's been able to prove that they did everything possible to show that they got out to absolutely everyone. Everyone had a fair opportunity to come to the table with an offer, and the seller feels good about it. And we've actually asked sellers, they're like, if you hadn't done it that way, we would have always questioned whether we left money on the table. So it's incredible. So you just built a customer for life based off of the process that you ran, right? And then on the flip side of that, in other cases, sometimes you do attract multiples, even when the property been on the market for 6 months. Agents know this all the time. They've had this dog of a property that's been on the market forever. They do price drop, price drop, price drop. And then one day, for whatever reason, they get 2 offers. True. No one believes it. Now you can prove it. Right. So this is, it's a magical way to be able to do that. And, the other piece of this is that with final offer, we have that secondary option for the seller to say, here's the price and terms I'll actually take. It's not a list price. List price is an advertisement. This is a concrete option that the seller is giving to the market that allows them to be able to give that to the buyers. That certainty, we found that just an easy strategy that a lot of agents have done. If a home's on the market, let's just say it's $1 million, home's on the market for 6 months, they drop the price to $900,000. but they keep the price, the list price, but they keep another secondary option, the final offer at that million, right? So it gives the seller still hope that they might be able to get that. We've seen case after case where buyers have actually come and made the final offer after it had been on the market for months because of the certainty of it, and they didn't want to signal to the market that there was an offer in hand, so they'd actually rather just pay the extra to know that it was theirs, even though it had been on the market for that period of time. They had the option to do it.
Well, and when you know that is the final offer, then you have the opportunity to go, is that worth it to me? As opposed to like, I'm going to get into this and not know. And at what point am I going to feel not like it's a good thing? And I don't,
Right.
but now it's like, you have time to look at that and go, is that what I want to pay?
That's right.
And if it is, great. We're all aligned.
That's right. That's right.
So are there certain kinds of houses or buyers or areas of the country, or like who fits the best in final offer? Where do you see?
Yeah,
that
so we get this
working?
question all the time. Like, oh, I've got the perfect listing for final offer, or I don't think this listing is going to work for final offer. And while what we've proven is that it doesn't matter what type of market, what type of property, it's all about price and how you communicate is really what it comes down to. However, we were curious. So we took a third party and had them analyze all of the sales that have been through our platform over our first 2 years. And the one thing that they found was that for properties that were average or above average price in the market, that were prime ready to sell, they're top of the line finishes, not modern, but modernish in terms of like what people were looking for, it crushes using this process from a sale to list price perspective. Just because if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. If you're creating something that there's desire and people want, and then you're creating a process that allows that person to get that, but and they can see what someone else has seen, right? Again, not an auction, but what it's doing is just disclosing if they want to show that they can. But it's not just about that. We've had people walk into an open house, and this is where the agent comes in. Is really important, is that they've gone to the seller and said, do you want to give everyone from the moment we list this that secondary final offer button option to just buy your house? And some sellers are like, yeah, we'd love to. And sometimes buyers just pay the premium because they want it, right? And this isn't just in hot markets. This is in slow markets. We've seen it in every type of market. And what we were learning is that the consumer wants to buy. So even though we provide an offer and negotiation platform, consumers want to buy what they want. They don't want to negotiate. This gives them a chance, if they have that option, to not negotiate.
Listen, I mean, it sounds amazing. I'm not a person who loves to negotiate. I'm not that person. So I'm like, and I think that, buyers, especially maybe who are just like, they've been through the ringer over the last couple of years. I can totally imagine, and sellers too in some markets. So it goes both ways. One of the things that really struck me when we first started talking to you, because at the time, and even now, you have a lot of companies who start something and they're sort of trying to disrupt the agent. Right? It's like, let's just get around the agent. We can just do this. And from the beginning, you're like, the agent is key to this whole process, and you were not trying to get rid of the agent at all.
That's right. Yeah. So what's really important about this is, so number one of my co-founders has been in residential real estate for over 25 years, right? The others of us come from a technology world. The agent is at the heart of this. This is the biggest life point decision. I think what we found is that a lot of agents in the market, I don't actually think understand what their true value is, which is being there to provide real-time information about the market, about the property, but also being there to assure them that this is a good decision for their situation.
Right.
And that, I think, gets undersold quite often, where that most people just need a little nudge. It's not about pressuring someone to do that. That's not what I'm saying. But sometimes they just need that extra confidence and guidance from a true expert in the industry to just say, yeah, you're making the right decision for where you are. Like, that's really important. So the agent's always been in the heart of this. There's no for sale by owner on final offer. Like, this is an agent thing. We actually got investment from Second Century Ventures, which is the venture arm of National Association of Realtors, purposefully, because we wanted to prove that this is for the industry. And we're all about the industry. And so, the other piece of this is, I think we were talking about this earlier too. If you come to finaloffer.com on our website, you'd never know what I'm about to talk about, which is we serve brokerages and agents, and by virtue of that, the consumer, right? What we offer, and the consolidation, what we're talking about at the beginning of the different service offerings that are happening in the industry when it comes to what an agent provides, mortgage, title, and others, is that the profitability for brokerages is really coming from ancillary services these days.
Yep.
Right? And it's a hot topic here. It's been a hot topic for our clients. And when you look at our platform and what are we doing throughout now, but also into the future. It's how do you bring those other service offerings into it at the heart of the transaction at the moment that the consumer and the agent are going to make these decisions. And so if brokerages are able to disclose and have options there for the mortgage company and the title company and the insurance company, whatever else is there, it gives them an opportunity to be able to get in front of the consumer at that moment. And we're seeing in certain cases, like settlement and title as an example, we've seen brokerages embed their title companies into final offer so that as buyer agents are making offers, they can put whatever title company they so choose, but it just says, hey, here's a preferred title company of the listing agent, and they can just click it. And it's driven attachment rates, right?
Wow.
And they're all disclosing everything, and it's all the way that it should be, from how you market those services. But that's bringing this into the transaction and giving people options so that they can say, this is the best for me in this situation. That's great. And it gives brokerages in the real estate community, as well as the service offerings around it, the ability to get to the consumer at that time.
That's really incredible because, first of all, as a consumer, it's nice for me to know, who am I going to be working? Who's the preferred people all the way through? Right? I'd love to know that before I get down to whatever stage. But also, what a great way to integrate something that, like you said, that's not the main point of final offer, but yet you're able to incorporate that.
Yeah, but it's all about the agent at the heart of that. Because that's the other piece of the value of an agent is that if you move to a new area, you don't know the service providers in the space. I'd say, Sarah, if you were my agent, I need a painter, a plumber, right? I need a house cleaner. I need a landscaper. What are the best restaurants to go to? I don't know anything. You're able to rattle that off for me, and I trust who you're giving me.
Right.
That's the value, right? And we know that a lot of folks are after, how does the agent maintain that relationship over time throughout the entire person's life so that they can be that type of consultant? I do think the industry will go that way. There's a lot of different technology companies that are trying it. There's brokerages that are trying it. It's a hard thing to solve, but ultimately the agent's going to be in people's lives, I think, more and more as time goes on, because they're going to use technology to streamline and provide real information while they're still having the human aspect of helping those people with what they need at that moment in their life.
I feel like you just brought it full circle from where we started, which was a lot of things have changed, but some things have stayed the same the whole time. And final offer, which was maybe born in the midst of a run up where you were having multiple offers on most properties, it's still an incredible value now, even though we're in a different market.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's funny, when we launched final offer, so we test marketed this in Boston 3 years ago.
Wow.
And we had 1 month before the market tanked.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So we had to learn very quickly, how can we help agents move property when there isn't as much interest in them anymore, as interest rates are rising and people can't afford them anymore. We've come a long way in the 2 years since we were on stage. We're in 16 states now, 3 provinces in Canada. We're marching across the country. We've got some great partnerships with some, brilliant Sotheby's out of Southern Connecticut, a number of the top franchises in the Keller Williams family, and just a lot of the great people in the industry are coming onto this because they see this is not the future. It's really of today in terms of how consumers want choices and how they want information and how they want their agent to guide them through the process. So that's what we're trying to partner with the industry however we can to be able to provide this type of experience for everyone when they're buying and selling a house.
Well, and if you can provide that value in this market, some of the hardest times, as far as volume and there's just a lot of challenges. I think that says a lot for you guys and what the future holds.
Yeah. And I think what you guys are doing, this conference couldn't be at a more opportune time as the merging of the different service offerings are starting to come to play. It's just a fantastic place to be able to meet with the leaders in the industry and really understand some of the trends that are coming. So if you weren't at HousingWire at the gathering this year, I would definitely recommend coming next year because this is always a great time.
I love that. Thanks for saying that, Tim. It does, to what you said, is we're trying to do the full picture. Yeah. And just like you, it's I feel like that's more important now than it's ever been in this market. So thank you so much for sitting down. I know we're going to do this again, so we'll see even the evolution of the next time. But thanks for doing this today.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for having us.